All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We are really excited to chat about our subject. What is it, Rob?
Diabetes.
Yeah, and fitness.
Can we try to mute everyone else?
Yeah. If you're on, can you just mute your lines? Yeah. All right. So we're going to be talking about balancing fitness and diabetes because it's so not easy. And it's kind of, when I think about it, fitness and diabetes are kind of like dating someone with baggage. It's exactly what it's like. It's, it's not easy at all. And as coaches, there's some of us here that are coaches. Some of us aren't coaches. Just to really bring some clarity to this whole chaotic thing. Sound good? Are you excited?
I was born excited.
All right. Well, Rob, on that note, I think we've got a little bit of a disclaimer.
Yes. So our disclaimer is that we are speaking from our own experiences, and nothing that we say during this webinar should be construed as medical advice. So if you have any specific questions regarding diabetes or anyone you know with diabetes, please consult your healthcare professional.
Yeah. And on that note, Rob said the keyword questions too. So if you've got questions, just type them into the little chat box there, because we'll try to make sure we get to them at the end, because I'm sure there'll be questions. All right. So what we're going to do is bring some clarity here, whether you're a coach or, not a non-coach. Just learning about fitness and diabetes is complicated. So we're like total geeks, and we made some slides because we want to keep this as simple as possible. So I'm going to do the funky screen sharing. Does that sound like fun? All right, let's get over there. I am going to try to screen share. Desktop, share screen. All right, one moment. Can you see my screen? Give me the thumbs up if you can.
Start first page.
All right. Cool. Well, part of it is, I don't know how many of you know a diabetic. I'm certain most of you know a diabetic, but do you really understand what's going on with them? Well, basically, let's just talk regular people for a second. When you live without diabetes, our bodies, they do a great job at breaking down the sugars and starches that we eat into a simple sugar called glucose. And that's really critical because we know that we need glucose for energy. Now, in order to do that, the body uses insulin, a hormone, to get glucose into the blood cells of the body so that we can get through our crazy workouts and do all that fun stuff. So the problem comes in when you're diagnosed with diabetes. Yeah, okay. And so when you're a type 1 diabetic, the body doesn't produce insulin. So yeah, the body can't use the sugar that it's eating. With type 2 diabetes, the body doesn't really use its insulin properly. So you become into a state, something like insulin resistance. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's just the body can't use the food that it's eating for energy. And you end up with sugar left in your blood.
And an important thing to note here is that there are about 10 times as many people with type 2 diabetes as type 1 diabetes. So if you know somebody who has diabetes, it is more likely to be type 2, just because it's more prevalent. But you should be aware that there are differences between type 2 and type 1. Type 2 can be controlled through diet and exercise. It turns out that if you get off your butt, stop eating Coke and pizza, and exercise a little bit, that you can start feeling healthier and get rid of some of your high blood sugars. Type 1 diabetes is basically, if you don't control it, you die very, very quickly. So that's the type that Laura and I have. It doesn't matter how well we eat or how much we exercise. It can only be controlled through insulin injections.
And so to give you some background, why Rob and I are talking about fitness and diabetes is, Rob gave it away here. We're both type 1 diabetic. I've been diabetic since I was 7 years old. And in August this year, I'll be celebrating 30 years of diabetes. And Rob, not quite so long, but,
In September, it'll be 9 years for me. So we have a combined almost 39 years of experience. So,
yeah. And the cool thing is, it only has been in the last few years that Rob and I have really started to delve into the fitness side. And, we've had our ups and downs. We've had our roller coaster days, and, we want to share a little bit of that with you tonight, just so you can understand what your fellow diabetics, or if you're diabetic, are going through. Now, as another disclaimer, as coaches, one thing that's really important to know is we can't ever recommend what someone do. So Rob and I are going to give tips, things that we've found successful with diabetes, but, we can't ever recommend, because tip 1, Rob, give it away.
As you may have suggested, everyone is different and every day is different.
Yeah. If you look on the right-hand side of your screen and you see all our little faces, we're all different. Like, some of us have longer noses, some of us have longer hair, just like in this picture here too. And when you're talking about diabetes, it's very different. It's not like being diagnosed with, I don't know, maybe osteoporosis or something, where it's, it can be very similar. Diabetes is interesting, my goodness. Let's take, for example, our workout today. For me...
Can we also just remind everyone to please mute your lines?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, for example, our workout today, Rob and I ate exactly the same breakfast. We did exactly the same workout for the same amount of time. Our blood sugars, our starting blood sugars, we always make sure we test before our workout, but we had completely different results. Rob and I are 2 different people. So, and every day is different. Maybe I was more stressed today. Maybe Rob wasn't. So every day is a different story in the life of a diabetic. So this is one thing to really be aware of. Can't beat ourselves up too bad. Well, on that note, it's super important to document everything. That sounds really boring, but my gosh, it is so valuable.
Yeah. Basically, if you don't write it down, it didn't happen.
Yeah. And, there are so many weird, quirky things about our diabetes that with these workouts that we do, if we didn't have it written down, we wouldn't be able to see certain things going on. So we have logs, and we write things down. I want to show you a couple really cool tools that your diabetic clients, or if you're diabetic, you could benefit from these. One of my favorite is an app, and it's called My Net Diary. And, it's just on my cell phone. It's got a little barcode scanner, just like most of the nutrition apps out there, so that, diabetics and anyone really can scan their food labels. They can type in their food so that they know what they're eating. They can log their blood sugars. They can, they can log everything, so that as trends start to develop, they can see them. Another great app is MyFitnessPal. Most of you are probably using it too. And also, one thing that Rob and I have done for our diabetic clients is this little log thing that you see on your screen. That is a really great tool that we use to help them see trends. I know Joan on the call right now, she's been using it. You like it, eh? And so what I'm doing tomorrow is I'm uploading this to my website. If you want to snatch it, you can use it. You can give it as a tool to your diabetic clients, or you can use it if you're diabetic. It's just really, really awesome to see how the food you eat and the activity you do affects your blood sugars, because you got to see it. Now, we've been chatting about this a lot, but check out the picture in the very center of the screen there. Those are my notes every day. Rob and I started a new fitness program this year called Hammer and Chisel. And wow, we have been watching for trends. And it's only because we've been documenting things and writing them down that we can actually make sense of how our blood sugars are reacting to this workout. One thing that is consistent between Rob and I that we've actually noticed is our overnight blood sugars were very low. They would, in the middle of the night, our blood sugars would start to drop, which is not safe. So we have had to make adjustments to our insulin doses to help us get through. And, somebody else might be completely different. So, between the two of us, Rob and I are seeing what our blood sugars are before we work out, looking at them after, and then monitoring and writing down our blood sugars so that we can see if adjustments need to be made, because really every workout affects us differently. If we were to do an aerobic workout like size or go for a run, that's more aerobic, so our blood sugars would be lower. Rob, do you want to talk about the difference between what happens with aerobic and anaerobic exercise?
So basically, aerobic exercise means with oxygen, and anaerobic means without oxygen. So something like running is primarily aerobic. But something like weightlifting, doing lots of push-ups in a row, things like those tend to be very anaerobic. But they can also have an aerobic content as well. So we have to be aware of whether or not the exercise is aerobic, anaerobic, or a combination, and how that affects our blood sugar. It also depends upon how long we exercise, because even if it's aerobic, initially there can be a blood sugar drop, but it can actually be biphasic and have a subsequent release afterwards, because the liver and the pancreas kind of get into a squabble, and things can happen with both sugar release and insulin absorption and usage. So we have to kind of watch both of those.
Yeah, so to really simplify it, I'm a girl and I get stressed out all the time. And so when you think about your workouts as though they are a stressor, dancing is fun. It's not really stressful. So you're dancing, you're having a great time, and your blood sugars drop. Well, mine do anyway, because there's really no stress. It's just fun. I'm just burning. I'm having a great time. But if I'm sitting there, my muscles are all stressed out because I'm weightlifting or I'm running a marathon, and my body as a whole is starting to get really stressed. My body doesn't like that so much, so the blood sugars start to increase. So think of a workout as a mini stressor. And how does someone's body react to stress? Depends on what we have to do as diabetics with our insulin and our nutrition.
Yeah, and it doesn't also have to be just exercise. Even vacuuming or going for a walk, as far as your body is concerned, is exercise. I keep reminding Laura that when she putters around the house doing some cleaning, she should decrease her basal or have a snack before, because as far as your body is concerned, pushing a vacuum around for 2 hours is exercise.
Oh, it's the coolest thing. If you are a diabetic and you want your blood sugar to drop, just do some vacuuming. No, based on all this, it sounds really wonky because there's really no straight path for a diabetic in fitness and stuff. But the big key is to make sure as a diabetic there's a trial and error system in place, and to always have a plan. I have worked with so many people that are diabetic and they, give up because they have, a low blood sugar their first day on the workout or second day and the third day. But what they miss is what's happening for the 24 hours after that. They feel bad because they've had to have a snack, and they feel like their whole workout went to the crapper because they just had to have a snack to get their blood sugar back up to normal. But it's really pretty cool. Your metabolism stays revved for the next 24 hours. You didn't kill your workout. It's just something to learn from, so that the next time you do that workout, you're back on track. You don't have that kind of low. We have lows. And the other cool thing is to always have a plan. As diabetics, we should never go into a workout without a quick source of sugar nearby. It might be juice. It might be some little diabetic dextrose tablets. There's a really cool product called Goo, and we use that when we run marathons, stuff like that. The Beachbody Results and Recovery, that is awesome for low blood sugars. So, just having quick sugars around just in case something should happen is a great safety measure, and to always learn from what's going on. When you're writing it down, you see it. Anything to add?
Nope.
All right. I've got a funny story about that one sometime. Now this, just to sum it up, is mindset. It's all about mindset when it comes to diabetes and fitness, because diabetes is a marathon, not a sprint. In this picture, you've got Rob and I crossing the finish line of our last marathon. That was in October. And, when you compare that moment to diabetes, when we crossed the line that day, our marathon wasn't even over. It was just beginning. We had to watch our blood sugars so close for the next 24 hours and even up to 48 hours, because as the muscles start to repair themselves after the marathon, maybe 24 to 48 hours later, when those of you that work out are starting to feel sore. Well, when we start to feel sore, we actually notice our blood sugars increase a little bit because of the stress and the repair that our body is doing. So it's a balance. Diabetes is a marathon. It's not a sprint. There's no easy answer. And just the understanding that it is a challenge will help you be able to relate. We always recommend that diabetics get support when they're starting something new. Feeling alone is never good. On Instagram, I have a great diabetic community that, it's just so good to, post something about our workouts and chime in. We all get it. We all get lows. We all get highs, but just knowing that others battle the same things is so helpful. With anyone, try. I mean, that's the first step, is just to try, see what happens, set your goals high, aim to succeed. But, reassess, because as diabetics, we should be writing things down and analyzing and reassess, and then, just try again. Next time might be a little bit better. So keep going. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So, yeah. Now, wanted to keep this kind of short because I know that there are coaches on the line and there are a few non-coaches, and everybody's got lots of questions. So I'm going to stop screen sharing right now and just open it up, because, being able to ask a couple diabetics these tough questions is really helpful, I think. Let me just figure out how to do that. Stop share. There we go. Hi, everyone. We're back. Yeah. Okay, so what kind of questions are out there? Or anything we say confuse you, or?
Hi guys, I have probably a simple question, because I don't know much about diabetes at all. I'm very ignorant when it comes to that. But I know with you guys having type 2 diabetes that your body doesn't produce insulin. So it sounds like you need to get more instead of less. But it seems like with diabetic type 1, is that the opposite, or no? Or could be, or?
So Rob and I are both type 1 diabetics, and so that means that our bodies don't produce insulin. So you're right, we need insulin, and the way we get it is to either inject it. We now also use an insulin pump, so we do that. And the insulin pump, it looks just like, we'll get a kinky video. This is the insulin pump, and it's attached just a kinky video right here. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little catheter that goes under my skin, and Rob's too. And so we're being constantly infused with insulin so that we can eat and we can use the sugars from our food. Now, if we were type 2 diabetics, our bodies might still be producing insulin. Maybe not, so much, but they're still producing insulin. However, the problem is that our cells just can't seem to use our insulin. And so we're diabetic resistant then. And the cool thing about type 2 diabetics is that quite often the medical community will recommend exercise to help increase the insulin sensitivity so that the body can use it, and also nutrition, eating healthy, not so much sugars, eating foods with low glycemic index. And what that means is foods where the sugar doesn't hit the bloodstream like pronto quick. It's more gradual so that there isn't that crazy sugar spike. Does that help? Is that helpful?
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
We had one question before. I'm trying to find it here. I'm trying to find who it was from. It was about preparing for low blood sugars during a workout. Is that person on the line here? Hopefully whoever asked that question for us to answer is actually tuning in, but
yeah, I have
maybe not.
So the question was, starting a workout, never seems to follow through with workouts because always seems to have low blood sugars requiring a snack. So a couple things that Rob and I have done, you're probably the best one to talk about all this, is...
Yeah, so I guess you can try to find who that question was from. But
because I guarantee you're going to have clients out there, or you are probably going to have low blood sugars when you start working out.
Yeah, so just as a preamble, we have met some people who say, gee, I wish I could work out, but I can't because I'm diabetic. We have met some people that say, well, I tried working out once and that didn't work for me, so I stopped. You know, it's one of these things, like, I'm sure, you know, the first time any of us tried to drive a standard car, we probably didn't drive it so well, right? So you have to have a little bit of practice with it. So for us, a lot of it has to do with anticipating what's going to happen in the future. If we're about to go for a run, we eat sugar before we know our body is going to use the sugar. Similarly, if we're about to do some heavy weightlifting and we know through experience that our blood sugar tends to rise when we do heavy weightlifting, we anticipate by possibly giving ourselves a small injection to try to prevent that high, and then we eat afterwards. So for the people that have a lot of difficulty, they just typically haven't put the time and effort into trying to figure out what happens to their body. And there's some evidence that also depends upon the time of year, the time of day. You know, for women, you know, certain parts of the cycle. So this all has an effect. So you know, as a diabetic, we can't get all freaked out over a single number. We have to see what the patterns are over time.
I have to chime in there too, because Rob mentioned being a woman, and wow, okay, ladies.
Well, I don't have personal experience on that.
Well, okay, as a female diabetic, that time of the month, the blood sugars are usually higher for me, and so that's gonna disrupt, you know, my trends that I'm seeing. So hormones play a big critical effect on diabetes. Another factor.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess another question that we are sometimes asked by the coaches on, you know, our team is, hey, I have a customer who's diabetic. How do I handle this customer? And our answer is always the same way you handle a customer who is not diabetic. It is not our responsibility to provide medical advice to a customer who is diabetic. Just like if someone had a heart attack and asked your advice, you would not feel comfortable saying anything, even if you were a physician, because you're not the attending physician for that person. So what we always say is that if someone has concerns about diabetes, it's their responsibility to consult their healthcare professionals. Laura and I are here to provide tons of support, more support than you could ever handle. All right? But managing diabetes is the responsibility of the person who is exercising. So we will work with them, we have worked with them, and we will do everything that we can to help them monitor their blood sugars, manage their blood sugars, mitigate high and lows, but we can only be speaking from personal experiences and sharing our stories.
One really cool thing is, you know, some diabetics, usually older, people that have had it longer, may have complications from diabetes. They may have started to get some eye problems, some broken blood vessels in their eyes, maybe some tingling in their fingers and toes and things like that. And there's actually exercises that people with complications shouldn't do. You know, for example, I pressure getting in some funny moves doing yoga, stuff like that. Their doctor may say that they shouldn't be doing that, and it all depends on the person. So yeah, diabetes is complicated, but when it comes to nutrition and stuff like that, basically anybody on this call should eat a diabetic diet. It's just basically eating for health, eating good food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question that we're frequently asked is, what does a diabetic eat? Or what should a diabetic eat? Our answer is the same thing. It's what everybody should eat. We eat as healthy as we can. We eat lots of vegetables. We try to minimize the processed foods. We rarely have desserts. And that really does help to manage our blood sugars. So there's really nothing special about a diabetic diet. We just try to stay away from things that spike our blood sugar, like pizza. I might have pizza once a year.
Now we got a question on the chat there. How do we prepare for travel? And there's actually, it depends. If we are traveling within the same time zone, super easy. However, if we're going over to Europe or something like that, there's actually little calculations on the American Diabetes website that we can do to make sure that our blood sugars and our doses all go with the proper time zone. So,
yeah. You're skipping over 7 time zones to get to Europe. Something happens to your blood sugar. Your body doesn't like it.
Because at different times of the day, a diabetic needs different amounts of insulin.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, enough of us talking, guys. Let's hear some questions from you.
I got a couple here. So Jamie Alford actually has a couple, but she messaged me. She's unable to unmute her line, so I'm going to throw these out here. These are for her. She wanted to know how often you have to check your blood sugars, and then also wanted to know, how do you get tested for diabetes?
Well, as far as testing our blood sugars, we test, there's different times. Rob and I test a lot because we need to have really, really good control. I always test before I eat, and then I know my blood sugar is good because you test, and then you look at what you're eating, and then you take your insulin, and then we test 2 hours later to make sure that the insulin we took for our meal was satisfactory, was enough. Whenever, the other rule is we always test before we get in the car and drive. We always test when we feel like something just isn't quite right. It's pretty much constant, every couple hours for us.
Yeah, so typically it would be 6 to 10 times a day. Now, one thing through experience that we've learned is that we are probably more of the exception rather than the rule. We've met some people who are type 1 diabetic, and we talk about testing before and after meals and before and after working out, and they're like, oh, I think I tested a couple days ago. And these are, of course, the people that have, like rotten feet and they can't see. So definitely trying to control blood sugars through frequent testing is the way that you mitigate those long-term, very, very nasty complications. And the other question was,
how do we get tested for diabetes? Well, usually, there's some symptoms or something that will promote getting tested for diabetes. And, let's take Rob, for example. Rob was finishing up his PhD, and I thought I was going to get dumped because he was so grumpy. He was grumpy.
You were.
I know, I was going to get dumped. And the thing was, he was also thirsty. He, really, really thirsty. He was drinking a lot of water. He was going to the bathroom a million times a day, it seemed like. And so, me being diabetic, I tested him on my glucometer, but if I had not been diabetic, he would have gone to the doctor's office and he would have just had a simple blood test done there. Initially, it would have been a finger prick, so just a drop of blood to see what the current blood sugar is at that moment. But that's just a snapshot. Yeah. However, what the doctor would also probably do is something called a hemoglobin A1C, which is the average blood sugar over the last 3 months. So if it's elevated, something's just not working right. There's also, what is it that?
Glucose tolerance test.
A glucose tolerance test, yes. And so a test can be done where the person's given a lot of sugar, and then they monitor what the blood sugar does after that. And there's also an enzyme. It's an enzyme, right?
C-peptide.
Yeah, a C-peptide test to make sure to show whether, the body can produce insulin.
Yes, because naturally produced insulin has a peptide on the molecule, on the hormone, so that when it's used to metabolize sugar, it is cleaved off and floats around in the bloodstream, whereas synthetic insulin does not have that. So,
yeah.
Got another question from Tracy. What is the normal range? So there's actually two systems. There's the international system, which is used by 96% of the world. So it's metric international units. And in that system, you have a range of about 5 to 6 millimoles per liter. So if someone has a blood sugar of greater than 10 or 11, that's considered high, and blood sugars can go much higher than that. But around 5 is normal in the international system. And the United States has their own system that isn't used elsewhere. And in this system, it is around 100 to 120 milligrams per deciliter. So if you're in Canada looking at this, it's around 5 to 6, and if you're in the US, it's around 100 to 120.
And so when it comes to fitness and stuff like that, if my blood sugar is 100 and I have some active insulin on board, I'm going to have about 15 grams of carbohydrate so that I don't go low while I'm working out. If my blood sugar is over 300,
which doesn't feel good.
No, you're going to feel like crap. You're also going to want to test for ketones in your urine. And if you've got ketones and a super high blood sugar like that, you're going to want to probably not work out, get some water, get those blood sugars down, and get feeling better, because it's not good for your body to work out when your body is very stressed like that.
Yeah. All right.
I have a quick question, and I know I can Google it, but I never have. I never say anything with people when I'm around people that are diabetic and they refer to the term bolus.
Yeah.
I've heard people use that when I'm around them. What does that mean?
So with our pumps, right there, there are two main settings. One is a basal setting and one is a bolus setting. So your body naturally releases sugar into your bloodstream throughout the day. And that's so you stay alive. So the basal setting is a small amount of insulin released continuously over 24 hours just to make sure that that sugar is absorbed by the body properly. The bolus is when you're about to eat a meal. So if you're about to have dinner, then you would inject your bolus before the dinner. And that's in addition to the basal. You never really change the basal too much throughout the day. But the bolus is for individual meals that have carbohydrates. Like if you're about to eat a salad, there's almost no carbs. Typically a diabetic would not inject insulin or reject a small amount of insulin for that kind of a meal. But if you were to sit down and, heavens forbid, eat a plate of French fries, you'd inject a lot of insulin and enjoy the blood coaster roller coaster ride. It'd be quite a big spike.
So we take insulin for carbohydrates.
Yes.
Because carbohydrates are where the glucose comes from that our body needs for energy.
Yes.
So if we don't have the insulin, we can't use the sugars.
Yes. So carbohydrates are broken down into sugars, the sugars in your blood, and you need insulin for your body to take the sugar out of the bloodstream and have it absorbed into cells. So there. Yeah. Okay, more questions. We got 5 minutes left here.
You're all good?
Well, you had mentioned earlier, Rob, and this was like one of my questions too, about like how you run into people that say that they can't work out because they're diabetic. And, and we talk about, we're not doctors and we can't give them medical advice, but is there a way you would encourage somebody to, look into that avenue? And, like, how do you approach when you get, because I've had people tell me that, I don't work out because I'm diabetic and I don't know what to say. Like, should I just not say anything, or how do I encourage them?
So for me, I asked them a lot of questions. I had sort of on this line, I had a girl this week who wrote to me and she wanted my opinion on a few things. And so I can't really say too much as far as medical stuff goes, but what I did was I simply asked her a lot of questions. One thing, if you have somebody saying that they can't work out because they're diabetic, maybe ask what types of activities have you tried? What happened? Have you considered, talking to your doctor about this, or have you considered starting out by walking and seeing what your blood sugar does? And, do you document your blood sugars? Here, I have a form you can have, and you can use it to help you document your blood sugars. And, it'd be cool to see what happens. Start walking or something.
Yeah. My personal opinion is somewhat jaded over the years, and I'll be frank on this one. A lot of people have become diabetic through the culmination of years of bad choices.
Type 2.
Type 2, that is. So quite often if you bump into someone who's diabetic and they say that they can't work out because it's diabetic, it's more likely that they have given up on trying to exercise because they're lazy. And they formed a pattern of not working out and then justifying it because they're diabetic.
It's sort of why I chose my new handle, No Excuses Laura, because I was getting so sick of the excuses.
Yeah. So same sort of thing when we talk to diabetics. If you talk to someone who's not diabetic who wants to work out, and you say, well, why haven't you worked out? Oh, I'm busy. Well, have you tried working out in the morning? Oh, yeah, but I want to sleep in. And well, how about, in the evenings after you work? Well, I'm tired. And, you drill down and you realize that they're just making up excuses to cover the last excuse. So obviously with diabetes, it's a little bit more complicated, but clearly Laura and I have been able to figure out how to manage our blood sugars well. We still try.
We've got the 1 minute warning.
It's actually 2 minutes. And we definitely encourage people to work with their healthcare professional, and, we will offer all the support. You can't out-exercise a bad diet is my number one saying. So some people who want to lose weight think that it's about exercise, but for those people, we also talk to them about trying to manage, eating properly as well, because 80% of weight loss is nutrition, not exercise. So, any other questions?
You take a picture.
Oh, we're gonna take a picture.
I don't know how.
Okay, so everyone's gonna smile here before the time runs out. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay, we got a picture. Really cute.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Anybody else?
Okay, we got about a minute now. All right, well, thanks a bunch, everyone. We really appreciate your time.
And if you've got any more questions, just add them in to the page.
Yeah.
Well, this was amazing, Laura and Rob. Thank you so much. It was so informative. You recorded it, right? Yeah, it looks like it's recording.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great. I can't wait to watch it again.
Great. Thanks so much. All right, take care, everyone.